So yesterday we learned about a whole bunch of different types of input that we can add to forms. So a form in HTML looks a lot like any other element. There's a tag at the start that says form, a tag at the end that says form, and there's two important things it needs in it. One is to have a button that you can use to submit the form, and the other is to have a bunch of input fields. You can see all the input fields here. I've got one that says first name, one that says last name, and there are a few extra attributes we learnt about as well. There's value that gives the input a default value. There's placeholder that gives it some grey text. And there's a bunch of different types of input. So I can have a password type, a date type, a color type, a range type. There's a whole bunch to choose from, and there's a link to the different types that you can see on Google Classroom as well. And that's what created all of these nice input fields in our form. So I'll fill that out briefly. Here's my name. You can see this field had a value attribute, and so it's been filled in already. The email had a placeholder attribute, and so it's got some grey text behind it, but I'll replace that with another email. The password field had a type of password, so when I type in a password, it comes up as a bunch of dots. This birthday field had a type of date, so I can select a date, and this field had a type of color, so I can select a color. And finally, this range here had a max and min value of 0 and 5, so I can select any number between 0 and 5 by sliding it up and down. There's a whole bunch of different types of input that we could add, and right now when we submit the button, not very much happens. What has happened is our page has written all of that information that we've submitted into the address bar, into the URL of the page. It's put a question mark, and then it's listed out all of the names that we've given to our fields. So there's first name, last name, message, all of that has been put into the URL. So we've got forms that can have a lot of interesting things on them, but the next big question is, what can we make these forms do? And what we can make these forms do is we can create web servers that will respond based on what is in the URL. This is a really advanced thing that you have that you're able to do, and we're not going to cover it this year in COM, but if you are interested in taking computer studies in future years, then that's one of the things that we get to, is we create web servers that listen to what the URL is that you're looking for, and they change the contents of the page based on the URL. How is this going to help us if it's not something we're doing this year? Well, we can use other people's web servers that do stuff based on the URL that you send to it. A really good example of this is Google. So this field here on the Google homepage is a form. It's just got one input, and the name of the input is just a single letter Q. So if I start typing in, why is the sky blue, and I submit that form, you'll see it goes to a Google page, google.com/search, Q, because Q was the name of the Google input, and then it says, why is the sky blue? And then Google also secretly submits a bunch of other junk. But we can remove all of this junk and just have Q equals why is the sky blue, and that's all we need to do to search for something on Google. That means we can make our own form that also searches for stuff on Google. And that's exactly what I've done here. So this is a very basic looking HTML page. The document type is HTML. It has a tag here that says the HTML starts at the top and ends at the bottom. It has a head section with a title, and it has a body section. The body section is where all of the contents of our page goes, and that is where I've put the form. And you can see what a simple form it is. It has a single input with the name Q, and a button with the type submit that will let us submit our form. It's very much like what we did yesterday when we were making forms, but there's one new thing. The form has got an attribute called action, and I've set the action to point towards google.com/search. So now when I submit my form, instead of submitting to my page, it will submit to google.com/search. So let's try that out. Here is my google.html page. If I type in, why is the sky blue, and hit search, it submits to google.com/search. Then it's got the question mark, it's got Q, because you'll remember Q is the name we gave to the input, and then it has why is the sky blue, because that's what I typed in when I submit the form. Just to show you that's exactly what's happening, if I go back to my form and remove this action, so it's just a normal form, then when I submit why is the sky blue, it'll submit it to my page. It's got question mark Q equals why is the sky blue. But if I add that action so that it points towards google.com/search, then I've lost my question there. If I write why is the sky blue, then it submits to google.com. Why is the sky blue? So Google has created a web server that will listen to whatever is written up here, and it will respond appropriately. And that's really awesome, because it means that we can also create forms that send questions to the same place, and we can send our forms to Google, and Google will do a search for us. And that's a little bit exciting, but we don't have a lot of control over what we send. You can create a bunch of other inputs in here. You can write name equals message, and you can submit that to Google, but Google's not going to do anything exciting with that information. If I submit, you can see it didn't even let me go to the page. It's gone to a different place completely. So Google's homepage is only going to work if we submit an input that has the name of Q. What we really want to do is we want to do something that will capture anything that gets submitted to our page and do something interesting with it. And there is a tool that will do exactly that. It's called FormSubmit. FormSubmit.co is a website that will listen to anything that you send to it, and it will forward all of the submissions to your email address. I think that that's a pretty exciting thing to have. That means we can create a form, and anytime that somebody submits that form, we'll have a copy of everything that they answered get sent to our email address. It's a really cool thing to have. And right here on the homepage of FormSubmit.co, there's an example of a form that you can use to submit to their website. You can see it looks almost exactly the same as the form that we did to submit to Google. There's an input field that has a name of name. There's another input field that has the name of email. So this form is going to submit a name and an email, and is going to submit it to this address here. This is the action of the page, and you can see that it has to be formsubmit.co/your email. So I'm going to copy this form, and I'm going to put it on an HTML page of my own. I've done this previously. Here's my form. It's on an HTML page. If I submit this form, then it should send the results of the form to my email address. So for you, you'll want to type in your username at student.packeranga.school.nz. If you type that in there as the action, then anybody who submits this form will be emailing their answers directly to your email address. There are a couple of things that you need to do to get this working, or make sure that it works. The first is, you'll notice when I've copy-pasted this form, it's added an extra attribute here, method equals post. You must have this bit here that says method equals post. That makes sure that your form is submitted a little bit more securely. instead of writing question mark name equals email, question mark name equals something, email equals something, method equals post means that that information is going to be submitted a little bit more privately. FormSubmit will not let you submit any information to their website unless your form has method equals post as one of the attributes on it. The other thing you want to make sure you're doing is you've clicked the Go Live button. So far this has been kind of optional, but for submitting stuff to FormSubmit, it's absolutely compulsory that you have clicked the Go Live button. If you go into your files and you open your form like this, so it's got file at the start of it, I will not be allowed to send anything. First I have to fill the field in. I will not be allowed to send anything to FormSubmit. It says unable to submit the form because you must open the page through a web server, not by an HTML file that you've opened. So the only way you'll be allowed to submit the form is if you've clicked the Go Live button and you've got an address that looks something like this. There's a number here and then the name of your file. This is because the very first time you submit the form, FormSubmit is going to ask you to activate it, and it needs to know this address here so that it knows that you have given them permission to let people submit forms to you. So I've got an input of type name, an input of type email. Let's watch this in action. I'm going to write my name. I'm going to write my email address. And now I'm going to click the submit button that says send, and it will send to, give that a second while it loads, it will send to formsubmit.co/username@student.pakuranga.school.nz, and you'll see the very first time that has happened, it's asked me to check my email for an activation link. So once you reach this stage, it means all of your HTML is correct. You've done the right thing. You've created a form that submits to your email address, and you have to go into your emails, and after about a minute, you will get an email like this that says activate your form. So that's telling FormSubmit that you are perfectly happy for people to submit information through this form and send it to your email address. So I'll get this email and I'll click the button that says activate form. It opens a new page, and I've never had this page finish loading for me, but I know from experience that I can now close this page down and my form will be activated. You can wait for about another minute and then FormSubmit will send you an email of the first submission that got made, and then from then on all your submissions will work. Every time you submit something to the page, you'll get an email like this that says what the person submitted to you. So if they submit the name test and the email test@example.com and they hit the submit button, you'll get an email telling you exactly what they submitted. That's really cool. There is a slight privacy concern with writing your personal email on a website. It's something you don't want to do very often because there's all sorts of people who look through websites looking for email addresses and they just want to send you spam. So FormSubmit has done something quite nice for us. When we get the activation email, it's given us a secret code that we can use instead of our email that will send the form to our email address, but we don't have to display the email on the page. Instead, we can use that secret code. So I'm going to paste my secret code here and save that. That's the same as my email. Now I can submit this form. Go back to my form. Here it is. When I hit submit, and again, we'll wait for a second for that to work. I still need to activate it. Apparently, I haven't refreshed my form. Have I saved the form? We'll try that one more time. There you go. So now it's working. This is what you'll see every time that you submit your form. After the first time, there's a little reCAPTCHA box that wants you to double check that you're not a robot. So I'll convince it that I'm not a robot by finding some traffic lights. And it's submitted. The form was submitted successfully. So I can return to the site, or I can check my emails to see the submission, and I'll get a submission of everything that I put into that form. This link tends not to work quite properly. This tries to send you back to your home page, but we don't have a home page. So when I click the link, it'll take me back to what the server does if you don't have a home page, which is a list of all my HTML pages. But from here, I can go back to my form, not that form, my contact form, and I can submit more information. So I think this is a really cool tool, and I encourage you all to have a go creating this form that can send to your email and come up with some interesting questions to put on the form. So you can make forms that look a lot nicer than this. In fact, we'll go back to this one. Try making a form like this that's got a name, first and last name. It's got different types of inputs. Ask them for something, some kind of date, your favorite color. You've got the list of all the different types of inputs that you are available to you in the link on Google Classroom. W3 Schools has a list of a lot of types of inputs. So I'd like you to all ask some interesting questions of people that when they submit your interesting form, you'll get an email that records all of their responses. So that's the task for today. Create a form like this one, put your email address here. After you activate it, you can replace your email address with these special characters if you want a bit of security on your site. And every other time you get someone to submit, you'll get an email like this one. Whatever name you've given to your input fields, that's what will get submitted to this site. So have fun creating some cool forms and recording all of the responses by getting emails from everybody who submits it.